All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Amherst Island Flood Damage Public Information Session. Hopefully everyone can hear me and I'm doing this correctly. I don't do a whole lot of Zoom presentations, so bear with me if there's some technical issues. So my name is Joe Gratton and I'm the project supervisor for Loyalist Township. I work in the engineering division, and together with our team, we'll be overseeing the work. Just to let everyone know, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the township website once we've completed it. The presentation is only about 15 slides, and it may be easier. Sorry, the people boxes are blocking my notes. It'll probably be easier if you wait till the end for questions. We will take as much time as necessary to answer any questions that you may have. Please use the raise your hand icon or enter it into the chat, and then we can allow you to speak, bring you into the meeting, and you can ask your questions. You can also email questions to jgratton@loyalist.ca, and we can answer it that way. And you can also send them privately, and we can also address them that way. So just a quick presentation outline. So we'll go through quickly just a little bit of the background, some key dates. We'll talk about the project scope, some of the construction details, what you can expect during construction, some project concerns from the feedback I've received so far, a little bit about COVID-19, and then just an opportunity for Q&A at the end and any more detailed questions you may have. So a little bit of background. High water levels in Lake Ontario in the summer of 2017 caused significant damage. Emergency stabilization work was completed at the time the damage occurred. However, permanent repairs are required. So an engineering consultant has prepared a design which will stabilize the bank, repair the road platform, and prevent future erosion. So some key dates. We plan to close the construction request for proposal in the spring of 2022. The projected or estimated start date is spring/summer 2022, and it'll depend on some of our in-water work windows and species at risk, that kind of thing. And the estimated completion date is late fall 2023, and that's just to make sure with all of the potential blackout periods for work that we can get the work done, or the contractor has enough time to get the work done. So project scope, the scope of the project is to repair flood damage and the road along sections of South Shore, front, second concession, and third concession roads. No other road upgrades are planned as part of this project. So I didn't put the drawings into the presentation because it'd be very hard for people to see within a PowerPoint presentation. However, they can be viewed on the township website projects page, and the location's on the screen there. Once you're in the projects page, if you click on the AI flood damage project and then follow the link at the bottom to the project page, you can see the drawings by project area. Someone's asked the question about blackout periods. So we're still working with MNRF to finalize our permits for in-water work. So areas where to do the work that you'll see in the next slide, if it involves in-water work, depending on what fish species may be there, there are restrictions on when the work can be done. So it might be June to October for that particular area, something like that. So that'll be determined in conjunction with, excuse me, sorry, Ministry of Natural Resources, as well as the biologist from the engineering consultant that we hired. And we'll just work around those windows and try and plan the work for, if there's areas where they're not impacted, we'll work in that area. And if there are areas where there's a blackout period, then we'll just have to wait. There'll also be obviously some seasonal shutdowns. This is a fairly large project. So depending on how late into the winter, that kind of thing. The project may have to be paused over winter. Hopefully everyone's found the drawing locations. If you're having trouble finding them, you can ask a question. We can sort of try and help direct you. So the work's generally the same in all areas. So what we have is what we call a typical construction detail. So that's what the planned repair will look like. So the number of blocks or the distance from the roadbed to the water's edge is going to vary depending on which location. So I think everyone is probably quite familiar with the island. South Shore Road, for example, the road is quite a bit higher than the lake level. On Third Concession, the road is quite low. So the number of blocks from where they're keyed into the lake bed to the top of the road will vary depending on location, but the actual repair work will look the same. It'll just the height difference is the only real change. So there's a note on there about placing and compacting granular A to a depth of 150 millimeters. So that will depend on the condition of the road for each specific area. So in areas where the road's already been upgraded as part of other work, or the road is in good condition, the granular A won't be removed, and we'll just match it where we tie in the shoulder work and the restoration of the bank. And in those areas, we'll make sure that we put back what the same depth of granular material that's there. So if there's more granular material there, we'll make sure that we're putting back the road in the same condition that it was. Just see a couple questions here. Oh, I will try and increase the volume. I'm not sure if there's another way to do it. I may just have to talk louder. So I'll just let everybody have a minute just so they can kind of take a look at it. That's essentially, this is the meat and potatoes of the work. And it will follow the same basic design in all 4 areas. And I guess I can kind of just talk you through it quickly. So at the water's edge, the limestone block will be keyed into the existing rock so that it's securely anchored. And then a 3-to-1 slope, a 2-to-1 slope will bring the rocks up to the water's edge. The large boulders or blocks will be on a bed of geotextile wrap, or on a bed of granular A wrapped with geotextile cloth, so they can be placed properly and properly locked together. And it'll look similar to work that you've seen on Front Road that was done, I believe it was in 2016, and also work that was done around the temporary ferry docks where they had the rock protection there as well. The main difference is these rocks, or these blocks, are going to be shaped in a bit more square. Around the ferry dock, it was kind of random size. So the sections of work that we have planned. So on Front Road, it's generally in front of 15095 Front Road. There is a typo on the slide. I know the address is wrong. It's not 50950. We took that from a video, so I couldn't edit it, but it is 15095 Front Road. And I did see that one of the residents from that property is in the audience. So if you have questions, you can certainly ask. So there's one section of planned work on Second Concession, and it runs approximately from 8550 west to 9000. So where you essentially come out into the bay from the road until the road turns back inland away from the bay again. And I did have some conversations. So the work will tie into the existing work that's completed at 9000 second concession. So some shoreline protection work has been done there, and obviously it's not our intent to undo that work. We're just going to tie into what's existing and sort of blend it in. So there's a question about the sequence for road sections. At this point, we don't know. We haven't finalized the tender. However, I think we would just leave it up to the contractor to do them in an order that's best for them. The more flexibility you give the contractor, the better pricing that we get. And also, if there are some areas where they can't work for one reason or another, for example, the in-water work window, they may be able to move to another area and keep working, so that it allows them to be as efficient as they can with their work. There's a question about the silt socks. So I apologize. I'll go back to the previous slide there, if I can, maybe. So the silt sock is an erosion and sediment control product. So that will be there until the work is completed. So, and then it'll be removed. So it's not a permanent installation. It's just meant to prevent mostly sediment. The rock itself will prevent the erosion, but sediment from getting into the lake from construction. And then once the work's completed, those will be removed as part of the project. And sort of the same question, what is a Filtrix silt sock? It's unfortunate. I had a really good picture that I'd emailed to someone who'd asked about it already. It looks like a roll of straw, if you will. So it's about a foot or so in diameter. And it, yeah, I mean, there's various sort of materials inside, but essentially it looks like a roll of straw. And the idea is that it traps the sediment and just lets the water flow through to the water's edge. So sort of the same principle, I guess, as you'd see with hay bales in a ditch or something like that on other more road construction projects. Hay bales aren't really practical just because of where the lake is. The silt socks can be staked down, so they're not going to move, and it's a bit more durable. There's a question if the owners of properties adjacent are responsible for any costs or work associated with what's being done. No, this project is being done by the township, so the township is obviously footing all the bill. If you have, I don't know how to word it, landscape items, so something like you have a metal dock or something, we won't be reinstating those, so it would be up to you to remove those. So that's and if you have specific, I get into a little later in the presentation, but if there's something specific to your property, we can discuss. But I know a lot of people have like the portable docks and stuff that they put in, so that would be something that the owner would be responsible for taking care of. But we can certainly have a conversation about anyone's specific situation. There's a question about shore wells and timing for the work. And yes, I think we can accommodate that, or make sure those concerns are addressed. We can figure out a plan for that. So that should be no issue there. There's a question about being able to move portable docks in and out of the water. Sorry, I'm just moving this here. For the 2022, I guess it's two questions. You can put your docks in. Once the contract, once it's been out to tender, it's awarded, and we have a better idea of what the schedule will be, where the contractor wants to start work, that type of thing. We'll communicate with residents and give you a lot of notice as to when you need to move things out of the way. So I wouldn't hesitate to put them in. I don't know how much work it is to put in a dock, but you'll have lots of notice and opportunity to bring it in and out. And then there's a question about being able to get the dock in and out of the water over the blocks. I've had conversations with some people about docks. I think it depends on the style of dock you have, but the intent is the blocks are going to be placed so it's a flat surface. Now it is next to the water and there's potential that they are slippery, but the idea is it's to make it a flat a surface as possible. Some people have the docks that have sort of like the big oversized wheels on them, for lack of a better explanation. And I anticipate that you shouldn't have any trouble getting those types of docks in, and they should be able to just roll down the limestone blocks that we place and into the water. And if there's a specific configuration or something, we can certainly chat, and I can come out and have a visit. We can go through what your specific concerns are. There's a question about stone walls. So I am very much aware of the historical nature of the stone walls on the island. And obviously we'll take all the steps necessary to make sure they're protected. If for some reason it was damaged, then it would be the township's, well, it would be the contractor's responsibility, but ultimately the township's responsibility to make sure that it be repaired to the satisfaction of the homeowner. But we don't really want to go down that road, and we'll make sure that all appropriate measures are taken to protect the walls. The work is all happening on the lake side, so there shouldn't be any issues with stone walls, and there's more than enough room to do the work. For shore wells and stuff, so there is a detail on the drawings for protection for the shore wells. I didn't put it up because it's not super clear to everybody what it'll look like, but essentially they'll be wrapped with geotextile to make sure to help prevent silt and stuff from getting to the shore wells, and that in combination with the silt socks and the erosion sediment control to prevent sediment from the project going into the water. Those are the two main means to protect shore wells. There is a detail on the drawings that you can see on the township webpage, and I can certainly also send out a copy. An environmental report. So we did I'll get the term wrong. It's not an environmental assessment, but it's a species at risk assessment. So we had a biologist from the engineering consultant go out, and they observed all of the project areas, and they provided us with a list of recommendations on what we needed to follow to make sure that everything is being done correctly, and we're making sure that there's no harm to the environment. And the same question also asked if CRCA was involved in the process, and yes, they are. We require permitting from the CRCA as well as from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forests, and those conversations are ongoing. We've been speaking with both organizations for a significant amount of time, just as the project's evolved and gone on. So we generally have the CRCA approvals in place. The Ministry of Natural Resources, and I'll talk to that point a little later, they need to see the site access agreements to finalize that permitting process. But yes, both organizations have been involved the whole time in the process.
Joe, I'm just wondering, some of the questions that I'm seeing, I think, are answered later in the presentation. So I'm just wondering if we might just pause on the questions for a moment to allow you to finish the presentation. And then I'll just let everyone know that we'll come back to the questions at the end, because some of them will be answered, I believe.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. And what I said I would do, so. Okay, so construction details we've kind of gone through. So front road we talked about. Second concession, I believe, is where I somewhat left off. So that's the project location on second concession. So third concession, so there's one section of work planned on the third concession, and it runs from Sand Beach Park west for 820 meters, which is just before the Emerald 40 foot. So if you look on the slide, you can see where the road starts to move away from the shoreline, and that's obviously where we don't need to protect the shoreline anymore. So that's the natural stopping point. And it is shown on a bit more detail on the actual engineering drawings. So South Shore Road, there are 3 sections of work planned on the South Shore Road. So the first section is between 4615 and 4895. So those who are, excuse me, those who are familiar with the South Shore Road, there's a small little bay. It's not very long. It's probably only, I think it's a couple hundred meters to section. But the lake's right at the road. It's pretty obvious to everybody who travels the road which section that is. So there's a small section there. And then between 3600 and 3950. So that's the section of South Shore Road. Again, where basically the road comes out to the lake, does a bit of a curve, and then starts following the lake. And then there's a provisional section that will be it'll be included in the contract provisionally, and whether we move forward will depend on a number of factors. And that'll be from 3600 to just before 3000 South Shore Road. So it kind of continues on until just before. There's some steel guide rail that's been installed in a few years ago. Potentially it could go as far as there depending on what happens. So what you can expect during construction. So it's construction, so unfortunately there will be some delays and some inconvenience. That's unfortunately the nature of construction. Whoops. It's anticipated the contractor will keep one lane open at all times, so that's what we require. We require them to maintain access. Typically they'll maintain one lane. There may be times during the project where you'll only be able to access a property from one direction. So if there's work happening, say on third concession, and for safety reasons or something, it's not practical to maintain a lane, then you may have to access, depending on where it is, from one side or the other. If that's the case, township staff will work to communicate these closures as much in advance as possible. So, it's not a case of you'll be coming home from work and get off the ferry and drive down third concession and realize you have to turn around. It would be obviously communicated well in advance and make sure everybody knows. Where there are lane closures, flaggers will also be employed to control traffic on the site and make sure everything is safe. And we also work with emergency services and keep them notified. So if there's any changes to access in the event of emergency, they're aware of what the best route to take is and anything that's happening. So dust and poor road conditions. So just again, because of the nature of the work and things happening, there'll be some challenges with dust and heavy equipment working is hard on the road. However, the contractor is expected to keep the road open and suitable for traffic at all times. So that means anybody in their standard regular car will be able to get through the site. And they'll be required to use dust suppressant to help reduce the dust created during the project. Open excavations. So there will be excavations on the shore side to allow them to place it. So depending on how they are, they'll be fenced or otherwise barricaded. And the contractor has an obligation to keep the site safe. However, I will put this out there again, it will be an active construction site. So, everyone has to use a bit of extra care when they're moving through the sites. Access to your property. So the contractor is required to maintain access to all driveways. There may be circumstances where there'll be temporary access restrictions. So if, for example, they're changing your driveway culvert, and depending on the nature of the work, you may not be able to get in and out of your driveway for 2 hours or something while they do the work. If this is happening, they'll obviously let you know before they take out your culvert and allow you to make a plan for any closures and try and accommodate any special circumstances. So this is typical on other projects as well. And we've had people with accessibility issues or mobility issues, and we've always been able to make arrangements that they can, access what they need to access. And township staff are going to be available. Obviously, throughout the project, we'll have a representative on site, and we'll also hand out notices with my contact information. And if there's any concerns, we'll make sure that it does get addressed right away. Trees. So the question was asked earlier. There's no plan to do anything with trees on the inland side of the road. However, on the lake side, to do the work, it's anticipated that most of the trees will have to be removed to do the work. And in general, if the tree roots are damaged and it's the opinion of township staff, the tree won't survive, we will remove the tree just to make sure there's it doesn't create a safety hazard. So most areas it won't be an issue, but I know there are a few locations where there are trees on the lake side of the road. And unfortunately, there's a good chance that they will have to be removed as part of the project. So shore wells, we talked about a little bit, but they will be protected during construction. There is a detail on the drawings online, but essentially they're protected with geotextile cloth and blocks, and they'll be marked to make sure. And that includes obviously the shore well itself, and then any associated like piping and wiring from the shore well to your property. Once the contract's awarded and we get a little bit closer to construction, we will reach out to property owners to make sure that we know the location of where your shore well is, where your pipes are, where the wiring is for it, because we want to make sure that we don't dig something up that is important. The grass areas will be reinstated with either a hydroseed or sod, depending on the season and erosion risk. For the most part, it will be hydroseed. We've had really good success with it. It's economical, it works a lot better. There's a huge amount of advantages to it. However, depending on when it is in the season or if it's an area where there's high erosion, we may use sod just because it's faster and it provides a bit more erosion protection. But for the most part, all areas will be reinstated with hydroseed. And then landscape features. So landscape is what I called it, but I know there's a variety of different things. People have decks and platforms and swimming things and stairs, docks, that kind of stuff. So any features that are within the township right of way will need to be removed for construction, and the township won't put them back. I'm not saying that other people, you can't when the work is done. And that's just something that we'll have to coordinate on a case-by-case basis. Stone walls will not be disturbed. So there's a number of stone walls on the different sites that I'm aware of. And obviously it'll be specifically indicated to the contractor that, they have to be protected. And we can discuss with individual homeowners what might happen for their particular situation if you have a specific concern that we're not aware of. So an environmental impact study, that's the word I was looking for. An environmental impact study was completed as part of the design process. So we retained a consultant. They completed that. The recommendations of that report will be followed by the township and included in the construction contract as a requirement of the contractor during construction. In addition, due to the water work necessary for the project, the township has applied for permits from both CRCA, the Cataraqui Region Conservation Authority, and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. And all requirements of these permits will be included in the tender for the project and obviously followed by the township. Site access agreements. So we're aware there are some inconsistencies or questions with respect to ownership of property outside the traveled portion of the road in certain areas where work is required for the project. A site access agreement authorizing township staff to complete flood damage repair work on property outside the traveled portion of the road without prejudice to the right of either party to dispute the ownership of any portion of the shore of Lake Ontario in the future has been mailed to impacted property owners. So we did have a legal survey done a few years ago as part of the design process for this. And I believe I have correctly identified the areas where our work may impact, I'll call it disputed property, or property that's clearly not ours. If you did not receive a site access agreement and think you should have, if you could email me or call the township or ask during the meeting or something, I can arrange to have one sent to you. And I'm available to meet anybody on the property to go through any specific concerns as far as how the work will impact your specific area and what that encroachment might mean. For the most part, it's because depending on the location of the forced road, the road right of way is limited to the actual driving surface of the road you see. And in order to install the blocks to prevent the road from washing into the lake, we need to have a bit of room to put the blocks in. So that's what we're looking for to do under that agreement. And it just allows us to do the work and on a without prejudice basis. So COVID-19 concerns. So construction projects are considered essential work. So it's unlikely that there'll be any issues with COVID-19 affecting the project schedule. However, being what the last 2 years have been, never say never. And I'm not 100% sure, but it is considered essential work. So it would definitely be one of the last things to be impacted. And then as far as the workers, all of the contractors would be expected to have a COVID-19 protocol for their staff to follow. And that's it for the presentation. So I'll get back to the questions and just make sure that we've answered them all, or if there's more, we can work our way through them. And if anyone wants to chat or ask in person, I believe if you raise your hand, we can let you in and you can ask in person or comment.
Maybe there's one person who's had their hand raised for quite a while. So maybe Blair Anderson, I noticed you've put some comments in the chat as well. So I will turn this on so that you can ask a question if you'd like to, but if you've put them in the chat already, then that's fine too.
Yeah, I put them in the chat.
Okay.
I do have a question, Joe, about the site access agreement. And I'll email you separately about that because it wasn't clear what Schedule A was as to the Schedule A because they're not marked that way.
Sorry, you broke up quite a bit.
I will email you my question about this site access agreement.
Perfect. I did catch some of it. It was just some confusion over the schedules. I don't have them in front of me off the top of my head. I know one of the schedules, I believe, is the construction drawings, and I think the other one was the legal survey. But I'll confirm, and I can certainly get that information out. Someone asked a question about working around the shore well and a requirement to turn the water off. I don't see there being a requirement to turn the water off. If there was some type of issue for whatever reason, if the sediment control failed or there was, I don't know, a monsoon of some sort and there was a large amount of sediment going into the lake, we would probably knock on your door and let you know there might be an issue. But as a rule of thumb, no, I don't think there's a requirement to turn the water off. There's a question about the work on Front Road, but I think I've answered. If I haven't, just maybe either pop in or we can or ask again and I can try and get through it. I believe I've talked about trees. I apologize about the stone stairway. If there are features like that, please definitely send us an email and we'll make sure that there's either a note on the construction drawing or some other way to mark it to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. The culverts, there's a question about culverts being replaced. So culverts will be replaced as part of the project. So when we do the road work, we will redo the driveway culverts so that all the culverts at the end of the driveway to make sure all the drainage is proper again. That's part of the flood damage mitigation work. And as well, any of the culverts running under the road to make sure the outlets are proper and allow the water to drain away and not damage the road. There's a question about access to the boat ramp at the Sand Beach Conservation Authority or conservation area, sorry. And no, we won't, we wouldn't let the contractor use that for staging or to impact the boat ramp area. I know that's a very popular place, especially, you know, in the summer. So yeah, we certainly wouldn't be letting the contractor use the parking lot at Sand Beach to store stuff. And obviously they'll have to maintain access to the boat launch as well. There's a question about the benefit of trees, I guess, is the best way to summarize that. There will be some consideration to replanting the trees. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the work on the lakeside with the stone, it's not really practical to plant trees on the lakeside. However, on a case-by-case basis, we can look at putting trees on the inland side of the lake. Just reading through. Other questions? Am I sharing the questions or just the presentation? Just as a, I don't know.
I believe we're sharing the whole thing, so it's one recording. So
No, I just meant if you can see the questions on the screen or if it's just a presentation.
oh, no. Do you want me to sort of paraphrase the questions for you, Joe?
I think I'm all right.
Okay.
I'll just roll with it. So aggregate created by excavation in front of the owner's property. So that would be the contractor's responsibility to manage. For a lot of reasons, we do try and minimize the amount of aggregate that we're removing from the site. There are a lot of new regulations about moving aggregate. So the intent would be to maximize as much or reuse as much as we can on site. And there is no intent to move any walls to put in the armor stone. If there is an antique stone wall that I'm not aware of on the lakeside within the project area, if you want to reach out, we can try and come up with a plan for it. But definitely you can keep the stones for, if there is a wall on the lake and you want to have the armor stone and save the rocks from the wall for something else, we can definitely do that. But yes, if you reach out, we can kind of further discuss that one. Sort of the same conversation about trees we've already kind of covered, I think, so we're good. The EIS can be made available for public review, so I will, I'll make sure it gets added to the project page. So the page where, if you found them where you're looking at the project drawings, I'll make sure the EIS is added to that page. There's a question about turtles. I don't want to misspeak. However, I don't believe any were actually observed during the EIS. However, the report will be online, so that'll have the answer, and I can I'll also post the answer to this on the project page as far as what the EIS said about turtles. There was some language about they have to, what's the word, survey the site to make sure there are no signs of species at risks, and that would include turtles. And then there is it goes back to the comment about a blackout period. So if there was something found, then we would have to obviously follow the blackout period. Someone asked about construction equipment placed on their property. There is no intent to place, to have construction equipment on anyone's property, with the exception of the site access agreements that I spoke about. And that's just to allow us to do the work on the water side, if it applies, but it's not our intent to go onto people's property. The contractor will likely approach homeowners and look for places to store things, but obviously no one is under any obligation to do that, and it's strictly between the contractor and a property owner if that's what they choose to do. There's a question about installation of steel guardrails. So there is no steel guardrails planned as part of this project, or no traffic safety upgrades, I'll say, planned as part of the project. However, if that's a concern, that can be brought forward, and we can talk about it as another project. Same question, I think, about the aggregate, or a similar question. So the way the contract is written, the contractor would be responsible for disposing of the aggregate. Again, they may have possible to work something out with the homeowner if the homeowner wants it and the contractor is willing to dispose of it there, then that would be between the contractor and the homeowner. Notwithstanding the previous comment about the stone wall. As far as timing for which specific locations, there isn't a timeline, and I think a lot of it will depend on the contractors, what their plan is, and then some of the done. So if there's any of those blackout windows apply, then they would obviously move to another area and work there, and then come back.
Just to add to that, I think more clarity around that can be provided once we have a contractor retained and we have their work plan. Like township staff is aware of the work plan, then we can provide more information about how they plan to approach the different areas of work.
There's a couple of questions about discussing in person. So certainly email, phone, I believe all my contact information is here. And we can set up an appointment and go through anything. And I'm also available. I can meet on your property following appropriate social distances. I can also do Teams or Zoom or whatever's easiest. We're very adept at communications these days. There was a question about more environmentally friendly options considered. So this is the option that was provided by the engineering consultant. And yes, there are other options depending on the location where, trees and vegetated shorelines and things like that can work. However, the areas in question where we're doing the work on, South Shore, second concession, third concession, and to a lesser extent, Front Road, the wave action there Unfortunately, those sort of, I guess, softer measures aren't a practical solution and won't provide a long-term solution. I think anyone who's seen on the South Shore Road when there's a storm or one of these events and the boulders are being pushed up onto the road. And although these are the rare events, these are the ones that we're trying to protect against. And unfortunately, it does require a bit more substantial stabilization to be used. There's a question about site access agreements. So it's been a few years, definitely not 2021. I believe we had the survey done, I feel like 2018 or 2019. So if you've purchased a property or it's changed hands since then, I wouldn't necessarily know. I believe it would have gone to the current property owner because I used the tax roll information to make sure it was sent out. However, I do know there is a bit of a lag. So if you purchased in October, it may not be there. It may not have updated in our system yet. So if you certainly reach out to me, I see your address is there so I can take a look when I'm in the office tomorrow and see if that's one of the properties where we sent out a notice. And I'm not sure how to contact you, but I can send another notice to that address. Most of them were mailed to the actual physical address. There's a few people that we do know are seasonal, and they went to the address that we had on file. And then there's a question about construction material and vehicles on the ferry. So it is a large project in scope, but it's not as large as the wind turbine project that I think most people are familiar with. So we're not anticipating any issues with having material brought or having construction material and vehicles on the ferry. We will also encourage the contractor to look at other options if they're available to minimize the impact on ferry travelers. And I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the new ferry will be in service hopefully soon, or at least in the summer. So, and I think that's when typically the ferry is at its busiest. So I think between all of those three items, I'm not anticipating a huge impact on ferry traffic. And I have the contact information now for the person who asked about the site access agreement. So I'll make sure that I take a look when I'm in the office tomorrow, and I can send that information along.
There's one more question or raised hand. So I'll just unmute. Bruce Kahi has a question. So Bruce, you should be able to speak now if you unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you for having this. However, Loyalist Township some time ago said that they would contact landowners. That's never been done. You have stated that you're just going to do what you're doing, and irregardless of the fact that you do not own the property you want to use. I've had a good lot of experience with Loyalist Township and agreements, and they aren't very faithful to what they say they're going to do. I'll point out the first one is on my own property, lot 10, Concession North Shore, where the Gulf there, you promised me it would be returned to as it was, but you never came and talked to me, none of you people. What has happened is you dug out a bunch of aggregate off my property and took it to an employee's property, leveled it out there and did a lot of landscaping work. And now my trees have all fallen in the ditch into the Gulf. That is unacceptable. Now I go up to the parcel of land in question on the third concession. Again, the only thing you own there or the only thing you have right of way is the forest road. And I have spent considerable dollars in legal fees to prove to you and others that the forest road is the forest road. You need to get my permission to use anything more than that, and I'm not going to give it, because I do not want those trees messed with that are growing up between the road and the lake. And also, you dumped a bunch of material at lot 71, concession 3, along the lake. And all those boulders and hardheads have all washed down on my waterfront on lot 70, concession 3. And you don't even admit that you've done that. You've made absolutely no effort to clean up the mess. And a mess it is. There's huge hardheads and rocks all the way along that waterfront. And not only are you in contravention to me, but also to the province of Ontario. So we need to talk, Joe, I think. I do have a couple of solutions that I'll throw out, but I need some conversation if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. I can't speak to the past. I'm fairly new at the township, so I don't know all the history of everything that's gone on. I will say I'm familiar with the third concession. I've spent some time down there, and I believe I know the area you're referring to. And we can certainly meet and go through everything. The intent for the shoreline protection in that area would be to stop once the road starts moving back inland. So I think the main area you're concerned where the trees are, it's certainly not our intention to work there. It's more focused on the area where the road is essentially right at the lake.
I suggest from what you've described this evening that you are going to be tearing into places that I do not want disturbed. So I believe we should have a conversation.
For sure, we definitely should. And the other thing I was going to say is we do require the site access agreement to do the work. That will be a condition of the MNRF permit. So if you don't want the work to happen, then it won't happen on your property. Some
way or another, I do want a road. So some way or another, there has to be work done on our property, I believe. So short of closing the road, which I'm sure you don't want to do. I hope you don't.
No,
anyway,
we don't. I don't think
I think it's past time. You know, you've moved ahead with this project without talking to the landowner, and I think it's past time you do talk to the landowner.
For sure, and I apologize if we didn't reach out to you. We did try and reach out to as many people as possible. However, there's still
you
lots
also
of time.
you also had a surveyor go in and put pegs up where they shouldn't have been, and there was no conversation at all. You know, I think I know which one of your staff is responsible for that, and I don't blame you. But anyway, I would appreciate a conversation in person, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll reach out and we can set up an appointment at a time that works, and we can kind of go through everything, and I'll make sure that your concerns are addressed, and we'll figure out a plan to move forward.
Thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
So there's another question about, as we get closer to construction starting, will owners be notified? So yes, there will be notices that will go out once a contractor is retained by the township, and we have more information about timelines. And then another question about where exactly the EIA and other information will be made available.
So it'll be put onto the projects page. I stopped sharing my screen. It was the link at the very start, but if you go onto the Loyalist Township website, and then I believe it's business and planning, there's a tab, and
I'll just copy and paste it into the question and answer right now.
okay. But yes, if you find yourself to the Loyalist Township projects page, there's a tab for the Amherst Island Flood Damage Repair Project, and then there's an initial sort of overview of the project, and then there's a link at the bottom that will take you to an actual project site. And on that project site, we have the contract or the draft drawings. They'll be turned into the contract drawings for each specific area. That's where we'll add in the environmental impact study and any of the other information folks are looking for. And as well, my email contact information is there, and you can also just email me directly and I will send you whatever information you're looking for as well.
So we'll just give another minute or two in case there are any other questions. So another question, what is the name of the engineering consultant that was used? So it was Greer Galloway Group. And a bunch of thank yous from people. So thank you so much to everyone for attending. Maybe just one more minute in case anyone has any last minute questions.
Well, thank you everyone for your feedback. It's great that everyone's involved. It's far easier to address concerns now before we've gone out to contract and things are rolling and it's a much bigger issue. So I do appreciate everyone's involvement and bringing your concerns to our attention. And as I said, we're always available to discuss. We can meet, we can go through things. It's never too late. So definitely want to keep the lines of communication open, and yeah, we're available anytime. So thank you again for everybody for attending and spending your evening with us.